So to start these, I like to give the listeners some context of how we know each other, what our relationship has been, and so I'll kind of fill it in. You can fill in any extra details that you have, but we met in Reno. I was living in Reno for a year. This was what, 4 years ago maybe, um, and I had a membership to the University of Nevada, Reno (UNR) gym. You played basketball there.
Yeah.
I wasn't a student. You were a student, but I had the membership, so it was kind of one of those things we kind of like got familiar with each other, saw each other,
Yeah.
and then it was like,
Yeah.
hey, what's up, dude? And then it
Yeah.
was, hey, how's it
Yeah.
going, man? Slowly it kind of
Yeah.
snowballed until we were hanging out. And then about a year and a half ago, you came
Yeah.
and visited me in Arizona.
Arizona, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's right.
You were with
That's
your
right.
uncle.
Yeah.
We went to the Grand Canyon. So yeah, that was a great time. Got to know each other a little bit better, and then now I've been traveling around for the last week or so.
Yeah.
We're in Eugene, where you're currently at University of Oregon.
Yeah.
Um,
I've got to admit that Jake here, he might be. Do you call yourself Jake?
yeah.
Yeah, Jake. Yeah, Jake. You might know this, but he's a fantastic basketball player, and I think that's how I actually got to know you at the basketball court at the University of Nevada, Reno, and stuff. Because he used to play so hard. He's a good rebounder, actually. He used to get all the rebounds from me, and I was always like, "Oh man, who's this guy? Who's this guy?" But you're a friendly guy, and that's how we got to meet, actually. And we took the relationship from there, and then I was just like, I was going to Texas with my cousin, as you've already mentioned and stuff. And then I was like, yeah, I didn't have a place to stay. And so I hit you up, and, you are, luckily enough for me, you are like in Phoenix. Oh, you were in Phoenix at that time.
Yeah.
And, you welcomed me to your place, and I'll always be grateful for that, for sure.
Yeah.
And welcome to Eugene.
Yeah. It's pretty fun now with switching, being the host. So yeah, it's been fun to get to know you over the last few years, and on this podcast, I want to just have on interesting people, and I mean you're interesting for a lot of reasons.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I didn't think of myself that way, but
Yeah, you've got a lot of interesting stories,
Yeah.
and I think too you have a lot of broadcasting experience. The podcasting is new for me. It's not something I have much experience with, and so this for me is kind of an opportunity. I mean, look at this setup. For those just listening, we're in your studio right now.
There's plenty of cameras around. I'm like, what's going on in here?
Yeah, we've got multiple cameras set up. So I think it's pretty cool. I'm learning a lot. We've got your mixer and software, so it's a lot to learn. But yeah, let's shift to you. I wanna get to learn as much as I can here. So I guess first things first. Let's just start with your origins. Where are you from? Let's start with that.
Yeah, well, I'm from Kenya, some part in East Africa. Not a lot of people know where Kenya is, I'm always here in the United States talking to different people, and, I tell them Kenya, they know it's in Africa, actually, but they don't know which part of Africa. Some people tell me, is it close to Nigeria? I'm like, Nigeria is West Africa, but, Kenya is more of East Africa, and then we've got South Africa in the south, for those of you who don't know. But I am from a place called Kisumu, Kenya, which is the western part of Kenya. If you're familiar with Lake Victoria, Kisumu is just on the banks of Lake Victoria, and so the community where I come from, they are referred to as the Luo. Luo, and so they're mostly known for fishing. It's a community that produces depends on like fishing for its survival and stuff. That's like the root part of it, but people do different kind of things. But the Luo, if you go to East Africa, they're known to be fishermen and fisherwomen and stuff. And so born and raised in Kenya, had a good time over there, and then until I was around 29 years. And then decided to come here for my master's in the United States, where I came to the University of Nevada, Reno, did my master's, graduated, and then came to the University of Oregon for my PhD. And that's very much it.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanna dive into what you're studying and all that, but before that, just kind of from my own curiosity, and I think maybe some of the people listening to this.
Yeah.
Like just in chatting with you over the last few years, I've noticed that you always split up East Africa, West Africa, South Africa, and then like Northern Africa as well. And so we got those 4 sections. I was just wondering, for people who don't know, could you kind of maybe just give a little description of what each of those places are like, what they're known for?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and there's also Central Africa.
Okay.
And so for most people, they're always like, oh, where's that accent from? Africa, and that's it, But Africa has 54 different nations, out of these 54 different nations, you've got maybe 55. We've got South Sudan, which was just admitted recently. But, there are like thousands of different tribes speaking completely different languages, different nations, and, different cultures, customs, and they do their own stuff, and so we have to sort of stay in this one place called Africa. And so when the British and the French came, they sort of partitioned Africa depending on whatever country they colonized. There's French West Africa and some parts of Africa, apart from not only in French but also North Africa. The French were there, and the British were mostly in some parts of West Africa, some parts of Southern Africa, and some parts of mostly East Africa. And then, we've got the Portuguese, who are also mostly based in the southern part of Africa. I've got the Dutch in South Africa. And so, when we talk about North Africa, for instance, we've got the Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, and, Egypt. And, when we come back down on the western part, you've got Senegal, you've got Benin, Togo, Ghana, Nigeria. And so eastern part, you've got folks like Ethiopia, Tanzania, Rwanda, you've got Kenya, Uganda, Zanzibar, and, you also have but you also have Southern Sudan in there, and Sudan too. And, when you talk about South Africa, you've got Mozambique in there, you've got Madagascar, you've got South Africa, Botswana, Zambia, Zimbabwe. Central Africa, you've got Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, you've got Cameroon, and, some other nations and stuff. So that's basically it. Yeah.
And then, so out of those 4 territories, Eastern Africa, where Kenya is, what are like the characteristics of Eastern Africa? How does that, just in the culture and the language and in the way of life, what are the signature characteristics, would you say?
Eastern Africa, I've got to say that they've got, I would say, the beach over there, the Indian Ocean, is a bit warm, especially along the coast, man. Plenty of cultures, because what happened, and then the biggest characteristics is possibly Swahili. That's the language that, if the way I speak, a lot of Africans would just be like, you're from East Africa, right? Because my accent is influenced a lot with not only my own local traditional language, which is Luo that I mentioned, but then there's also Swahili. And so Swahili, to a significant part, which is a national language of Kenya, Tanzania, and some of those other East Africa countries, influences the way we speak English. So the accent that you hear, is mostly influenced by Swahili. And so a lot of people from other parts of, Africa would be like, you're from East Africa. I can tell, by your accent. And Swahili forms a big part of the culture. And I was telling you today that, Swahili, which is the most popular language in Eastern, sort of some other countries in Southern Africa and Central Africa too. I was born in Zanzibar. It was raised in Tanzania. And then it grew up in Kenya, fell sick in, Uganda, died in Rwanda, and was buried in Congo. So the more you move inland, the more, the more diluted the Swahili becomes, And so that's a big factor as far as East Africa is concerned. They're also known for the safari, some of the best national parks and, animal reserves. We don't have animals roaming around like a lot of people have it in their image or picture. The media, powers that be has made people to believe that, that's Africa. You just have animals roaming around and stuff. But, they're sort of in places that, tourists come over and sort of check them out and stuff. So they're known for the best, like Serengeti, for instance. That's Tanzania, You've got Masai Mara National Park, which is parts of it in Kenya, parts of it in Tanzania. You could see any animal that you want, and that's always a significant part of the economy of East Africa. And then apart from that, East Africans are known to be way cooler people, calm. Not to say the other parts of Africa are not cool and calm and stuff, but it's just part of our culture. I can speak for it because I come from East Africa. But, I have traveled quite a lot, and West Africans too are, cool and stuff like that. But as far as East Africa is concerned, our culture and customs is mostly influenced by a lot of other cultures, especially Arab. I told you about Swahili in the sense of like, it came about as a result of the interaction between the Arabs, Indians, and the local communities, because they couldn't understand each other when they were trading and stuff. And so, the language that came off of that interaction between Arabs and, the local communities back in East Africa gave birth to Swahili. And so, our culture and customs just demand us to, be courteous to people. And, also it's multicultural big time, especially in Kenya, where I grew up in. Kenya has like one of the biggest refugee camps in the world, Dadaab refugee camp. We host like people from South Sudan who've had issues, a war-torn nation, Somali, big part of Kenyan population are of Somalian descent. We've got folks from Ethiopia, which has had its own turbulent fare of issues, we host folks from Rwanda, who have had their own issues with genocide at some point, Burundi, and, other nations. And so we sort of grow up in this multicultural, multi-diverse place. And so, I would say Eastern African folks, they're way more peaceful and, they just like to have a good time. Partying is always big time as far as East Africa is concerned. So, I can go on and on and on, but hey, that's East Africa for you.
Yeah, that from just knowing you the last few years, that definitely checks out. With you're very easygoing. You're always the life of the party. It's funny. We're in Eugene right now. We went to a concert last night, and then we went out to a bar afterwards. But
which is all you, right?
Nah,
when was the last time you were in a bar, really?
I don't even know.
Oh man,
it's not a big bar guy, but I love being a yes man when I'm traveling, and if that's Nesta style, that's what I want to do while I'm here. And it's funny, man. Everyone comes up to you, everyone knows you, and it's clear you're easygoing, you're the life of the party. That definitely checks out what you're saying.
It's a little bit, especially here in America. What I've learned is that in America, possibly a lot of folks are like, I was told, chest out, and you gotta be confident, and you gotta, be out there, and boom, and stuff. And so I tend to struggle a little bit with that. I mean, I could be charismatic, I could be, out there if I wanted to. But in our culture, we are a little bit reserved, not like mostly reserved and stuff. I mean, Kenyans are outgoing and stuff, but we are a little bit reserved and relaxed. That's how it is in Africa, no like pressure. It is much more pressure here in the States because people quack, but it's much more relaxed African time, take your time doing things. So when I'm here in the States, I tend to struggle a little bit. Some people have called me like, oh, he's lackadaisical, in a way, but which is understandable because, cultural differences and stuff, but East Africa, oh man, life. If you want to party, go to East Africa. That's the place to be. And so I have brought my partying, whatever. Not that I party all the time. Hopefully my advisors are not hearing this podcast or something. But I love to party, meet people, and, talk to different people and stuff, and, and break all the barriers and just have a good time for sure. Yeah.
And just for listeners too, I think it's interesting that you're this party guy. You go out to the bar, everyone comes up to you, everyone knows you, and you don't drink, you don't do drugs. You're a sober person. I mean, we were out till 2 a.m. last night or whatever, having a great time, and we were both sober. So I think that's cool. It's it's a cool way to live your life.
And I could go on, and I could party because I'm one of the things that has always perplexed me is at 2:30 the bars are closed. When I came, in East Africa, the bars don't get closed, man. People party. I remember when I was like in Well, I still used to be a bit energetic. My undergrad days and stuff, we could get into a bar on Friday and leave on Sunday.
Yeah. Oh,
You know,
man.
which was mess. It was wild, And so just drinking soda all this time, because people come, people leave, people come and people leave, especially Nairobi, which it can be kind of crazy and stuff.
Nairobi's the
Nairobi capital.
the capital of Kenya.
That's the capital, and then the coastal cities, Mombasa, Malindi. And then Kisumu, which is the third largest city, is like, mostly, what is it? I would say business oriented and, culture and stuff. And, music also is big time. So music is a big time thing in our culture because that's I would say, is like our therapist, Here in America, people, contact therapists and stuff. We can't afford that sometimes.
Yeah.
So people are not really outgoing. We don't really have a culture of people talking about their issues, I would rather die like a man, That's how we are sort of raised up to deal with their issues like a man and stuff. And so it's not really in our culture. But I know when people go out and drink, when people dance, they do it like with all their passion.
Yeah.
And so I grew up in that culture. And so when I come here, it's just a little bit easy for me, but I don't want them to close the bar at 2:30 because, I got used to the bad ways of Nevada where, you could just party as much as you want and stuff. But, I'm still trying to get used to Oregon, you know. Yeah, but, we had a good time last night for sure.
Awesome. All right, I want to jump back a little bit to growing up. And what were you like as a kid? What was your family like? What was it? Just what was your demeanor like? What were your interests?
Yeah. Well, I sort of, my grandma raised me. My grandma formed a huge part of my life, because when I grew up, I never knew my dad at all. I've never known my dad till today. I don't know. I might have been partying out with him last night and I don't know, So I never knew the guy at all. My mom, whom I loved so much, gave birth to me when she was a little bit younger, maybe 18, 17 or 19, Yeah. So, and then she gave birth to me, but, she was also kind of busy doing her own stuff, trying to discover herself at the same time. And so my grandma took me in and stuff and started raising me. And then my mom died when, I was around 14, 15 years old and stuff. And then my grandma continued playing the role. And so any conversation that I have, I'm always talking about my grandma because she was my mom, she was my father, and she was my grandma at the same time. And, boom, I love her to death and stuff. But I've got a younger sister who I'm 10 years older than her. And she's in Kenya right now. And, she's also studying communication and journalism like me. She likes video editing, actually.
Hey.
Yeah, for me, I'm more radio and stuff. But her, she's like more, video and stuff. And she followed in my footsteps, actually. I'd expected her to be a pilot or something else. But, clearly, I had that strong influence in her, and, which is fantastic. And so when I grew up, actually, I was a little bit laid back guy, I was dealing with a lot of issues and stuff, and so I kept a lot to myself when I was growing up. I don't know where, I got, and sometimes even in my adulthood, I'm like sometimes super chilled and people are like, is everything okay? What's going on? I'm just in my own zone.
Yeah.
But I could be more charismatic, and sometimes that, actually surprises me. I'm like, oh, where did I get those guys from? Interestingly enough, like public speaking is something that I really like, but I think that has been cultivated with my passion and interest in journalism as time went by. I managed to beat those fears and stuff. But I played soccer, was huge as far as, my growth is concerned. I played basketball later in high school. I wasn't really good at anything. But badminton, I picked that up and boom, I'm really good at it, not to blow my horns and stuff. But, I could, I give a lot of, I'm in the school club at the University of Oregon. I'm pretty good at it. The Asian students who mostly play it, actually, they're always quite surprised, man. You've got skills, dude. I'm like, I learned these things in the streets back in Africa, and stuff. But, I would say I also grew up around a strong support system, My uncles really took good care of me. I'll be where I am today without the support of my uncles and my aunt too. and my cousins and stuff. And so back in Africa is a little bit more communal. In the States, it could be a bit individualistic, it's more communal sometimes. Yeah, but, in our culture, it's like anybody could punish you, if someone who's not your relative, so you committing or doing anything fishy and stuff, boom, they cane you and punish you on behalf of the parent. Wow. So like a child is like a village, that belongs to the village, so it's not like here where if you touch anyone's kid, goodness me, that will be the end of you. You're going to be in prison for the rest of your life or something. But, back there, the child belongs to the society. So I grew up in such a communal culture. And, I was a little bit sometimes rude if I wanted to be, a little bit troublemaking and stuff, when you're a boy and you're trying to discover yourself and stuff. And but I was overall, a friendly, cool guy who kept a lot to himself and later on beat my own fears and, go to do whatever I'm doing today for sure. Yeah.
Gotcha. I've always considered myself kind of an introvert too. I've mostly kept to myself, especially when I was younger. And, we're both kind of, I'm doing this podcast. You've done podcasts in the past, all kinds of broadcasting stuff. So I guess for you, when did you start to want to share what was going on inside with the outside world? When did that start to click? Where you're like, I've got something I want to say. I want to be putting it out there.
Well, I would say journalism really helped me out a great deal. Because I remember when I was actually, we call it primary school, I don't know, here it's great, you've got middle school and all, I get confused so much, but we call it, so we have primary school, high school or secondary school, and then you go to university and stuff, but when I was in primary, which would be, grade 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, I basically had the passion for communication already. And so I could read news during school. We used to have an assembly, we call it assembly, where people come and congregate and, the teachers talk about whatever they feel, where the school is heading to, if there are any issues, but during that assembly, I used to read news. I was like in the school's journalism department at that young age, a bit shy still those days, but I could do things and, I was like, wow, was I? And I still feel that till today. If I give a speech or if I talk about myself, especially in podcasts like this, I'm going to go back later and I'm like, feeling so guilty. Oh, man, did I incriminate myself or did I say anything wrong? It's just like in a date, Yeah, I feel like, oh, man, how did that go? Maybe, you kept on, thinking you did the wrong thing and stuff like that. But as soon as I went to high school, and then university, boom. When I was in high school, I knew already what I wanted to do, communication, especially radio, because this is a little bit more personal for me because my mom always wanted to be a radio presenter, but she never got a chance to do it, And so I always doing radio because I'm doing it for her, basically. She wanted to do this, but never got a chance. I got the education, luckily enough, and boom, I'm doing it till today. And so that's why this whole studio setup, this is the Emily Diana Studios, because, that's my mom, may her soul rest in peace, but I'm keeping her dream going, because I'll be where I am today. Maybe if she'd wanted to be a pilot, or if she'd wanted to be an engineer, I'd be an engineer today, so I'm just keeping her legacy going and stuff. And my grandma too, two strong women in my life, basically. She's the most brilliant, and she was a teacher, actually, I forgot to mention.
What did she teach?
Yeah, English, science, history, geography.
That's a teacher.
She's a real teacher. And so I grew up in that environment, So I speak, I'd say, really good English, better English, because English is not actually my first, second, or third language, should be fourth or fifth, and, but I speak a little bit better English compared to some other folks because of her. She taught me how to speak English from such a young age. And so, yeah, man, Yeah, I got lost, but it's
Yeah,
okay.
no.
I rumble and rumble and rumble, but that's the beauty of it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but ever since it has always been good, especially in high school. What happens is in high school, I went to a Catholic high school, and the way it happens down there basically is that you guys go to a boarding school. I don't know if you have boarding schools here in the States.
Yeah, my sister
Everybody, everybody puts on uniforms, and you also go to masses and church, and you've got days set apart, especially if you're in a religious institution and stuff. And so we were a little bit rebellious, And so I got to become a little bit extroverted, not like much, but when I was in the school cheering squad. And the cheering squad, when I mention this, it's not like here where it's sophisticated. People come and dance and, somersault and all that. It's a little bit rough out there, You sort of form a group of whatever, and you walk or run around singing, dancing and stuff. It's a little bit different concept as far as cheering squad is concerned. So I used to cheer our teams back in high school really, really, bad, and we just loved it. And so from this singing, dancing, getting to interact with people, boarding school taught me a lot. Actually, I got to become a little bit extroverted and stuff. When I went to campus, holy smokes, I went to a sort of expensive campus, United States International University, which is one of the...
This is the Catholic high school, or is this the college that you went to?
No, that's the college now. Yeah. They call the high school was St. Peter's, high school, but I went to United States International University. That's a university now, and basically it's an American institution in Kenya, quite expensive, but I managed to interact with people from all around the world, especially, the who is who in societies. They brought their kids over there. And so, with that university sort of life, it forces you somehow when you're giving presentations in class, when, you are mingling with people. There's lots of competition, especially when it comes to dating, And if you're not out there, my friend, possibly you may never get a date or something,
Musical chairs.
And so, I'd say circumstances made me to be a little bit, extroverted, but also sometimes suffer. So I'm in between introvert and extrovert, depending on the circumstance and the situation.
Yeah, definitely. I certainly relate to that. I was, and honestly, kind of in some of the specific details, I was always an introvert, and then I went to a 1 semester long boarding school for my junior year of high school, and that was I went for the other 12 years of first grade through 12th grade before college. I was at the same school, same classmates, small school, so I knew everyone really well. So there was this 1 semester where I went out, and that's kind of when I started becoming more extroverted. I met people that wasn't cheer squad, but there was sort of public speaking responsibilities. It's the first time I really had to kind of push myself and get out there. But cool. I want to jump back a little bit. You started talking about language, and I've talked about language with some of my other podcast guests as well. So I want to dive a little bit into that. So you said English is your 4th or 5th language, you said?
4th, 5th, yeah.
What are the first 3 or 4?
First of all, before I answer this question, how do you call someone who speaks 3 languages?
Trilingual?
Trilingual, you got that right. Boom. 2 languages.
Bilingual?
Boom. You check that right. 1?
Monolingual?
Well, that could be it, but not like what I'm looking for, really.
What are you looking for?
Try harder. American. It's always a joke that I crack. Not that Americans don't speak, a lot of languages and stuff. But
it's true.
Yeah.
So we just had a little interruption there for the camera fell.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, but diving back into it, we're talking about language. And so, your joke. So what languages do you speak?
Yeah. My first language, basically, as I mentioned, Kenya alone has 44 different tribes. And these different tribes, they speak different languages, And so the only language that unites us is basically Swahili, which is the national language. And then because a lot of people, not everybody, but majority of the nation speaks Swahili, and so most radio broadcasts would be in Swahili. Most leaders would communicate in Swahili and stuff. But Luo, which is my native language, that's my first language.
Is it Luo? Am I saying that right?
Luo, yeah.
Luo.
Yeah,
okay.
I say that right, yeah. So Luo basically is like my first language. The Luo in Kenya, they are around 6.5 million. They should be the fourth or fifth largest tribe in Kenya. And so, so Luo is my first, and then Swahili, I would say, is my second. Now, Luya is my second language. Basically, my grandma, as I told you, she used to be a teacher. And so when she was teaching, they transferred teachers to different places to add into the diversity and, different viewpoints and perspectives, So she taught in a different tribe, in a different area, which speaks like the Luya language. Luyas are Bantus. They originated from a different...
Luya is different than
Luo. Yeah,
okay.
Yes, that's different, yeah. So we are Nilots because we follow the river Nile. If you're Nilots,
okay.
Coming to Kenya. Bantus, they came from a different place to Kenya. All these communities came from different places.
Yeah.
And so my grandma used to teach among the Luya population. So I grew up among the Luya. And so I picked up the language, because for like the rest of my life, that's where I grew up in, because she was a teacher and stuff. And so Swahili is like third language, basically. And, with Swahili, everybody can speak Swahili because I learned this in school, and it's the language of business mostly. Language of, you could speak to anyone and stuff and get to understand each other.
Is that the language that like math and science are taught in at schools, in primary school?
No. So that's English now.
Okay.
English comes in fourth language,
Gotcha.
Because like now that's the official language. So Swahili is the national language, but English is the official language of business. That's if it's official business, because a lot of businesses are done in local languages, But I would say international business and stuff. And also parliament, they talk in schools, it's most English. And so there's like this sophistication in the sense of the better English you speak in my society. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on whatever's perspective you look at it, the more sophisticated you are, people are running away from their own local languages to associate themselves more with this sophistication in the name of English, and so, which is a different topic altogether. But, English, that's going to be my fourth. And then fifth, now Sheng. Sheng comes in. Sheng basically is the street language. You may think you know Swahili fluently, but when you go to the streets of Nairobi, you'll be like, wait a minute. What the hell are these people talking about? I thought I knew Swahili. It's just like the English that, I'm speaking with you right now. But when you go to Baltimore, you grew up in Maryland, right? Yeah. When you go to Baltimore and you're in the streets, man, you're like, what the hell is going on here, So that's the same thing, that street language, street vibe, and that language keeps on metamorphosizing every day, And so that's how Swahili is. So Sheng basically is that street language that, I went to Kenya, I've been outside the Kenya, let's say for around 6 years now. But if I went back, the Sheng that was being spoken then is not the Sheng that is being spoken now. I would be like, wait a minute, what's going on and stuff. But so Sheng comes in as my fifth language. And then I could speak some Jamaican patois too, Yeah.
How'd you pick that up?
Yes, so I mostly... in Africa, Jamaican music is big time. Jamaican culture, it's like the closest you're gonna get as far as a lot of other foreign cultures are concerned. The one that a lot of people, especially the people who suffer the most and they just want inspiration as far as music is concerned, the people are justice oriented and stuff, and the music itself. And plus, of course, those people sing, Caribbean people sing praises of Africa. That's where they came from, And so a lot of people connect with Bob Marley's music, and a lot of these Rastafari religion has lots of connections in Africa. And so, it's you gotta pick it up, you know.
Yeah.
If you don't say any Jamaican words and you live in Kenya, holy smokes, where the hell did you even come from, or where do you live and stuff? But I also had like a Jamaican girlfriend way back, you know, and so I picked it up. Then Japanese, I can speak some Japanese.
Really?
I did that as a foreign study.
Wow.
Yeah, when I was in university, picked that up as a foreign study, and then I could speak some other local languages too, you know, because as I told you, Kenya is multicultural and stuff. Kikuyu, some Meru words, you know, some Kalenjin words. So you got to pick up a couple of those. Some French too, I could speak some French. I want to learn Spanish so bad, German. I just want to be a global citizen, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many languages do you speak, man?
English, and then I speak Spanish pretty well. Not fluent, but I can get around. And then a little bit of Portuguese, but not much.
Yeah. Tell me any bad words in Portuguese, man.
Portuguese. See, I don't even know. That's
Yeah. Bad words in Spanish.
Yeah, we got La Mota.
La Mota.
Yeah, we're talking about that. Right?
What is puta?
Puta is like everything. It means bitch, cunt, fuck. It's just a bad word.
Oh,
you know?
I've never used that one. I've never used that one, man. Oh man.
It's I always like pinche. Pinche is it's more polite. It's kind of like, it means like fucking in context. Like this is too fucking exhausting. This is pinche, you know. But it's more polite. It's kind of like goddamn, or you know, it's like it's more of a. I always like that one.
How do you learn all these bad words, man?
Playing baseball on a Mexican baseball team in Reno. I learned Spanish in Guatemala mostly, but I had a teacher there. He didn't teach me all the bad words, but playing on a baseball team and you learn pretty quick. And also construction. I did construction for a few years. Yeah.
Pinche.
Hijo de puta.
Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. I love learning when I learn a language, I like learning firstly the bad words first.
Yeah,
you know?
it's kind of like counter how you do it in school, but I honestly think it's easier because then you kind of end up like being able to understand like the conversations that people actually have. And I feel like that's like it's not slang, but it's sort of that's like how people actually think. That's how people actually operate, rather than like learning like airport words. I'm always like, why do you need to learn airport words first? You know.
You remind me when I was growing up, and you know, I could watch TV, and after like maybe watch TV with my parents, and you know, I would only remember the bad words alone, or when people kissed, and they didn't like that. Whenever people started kissing or anything, they would switch off the TV or chest us out and stuff. And so when we're having a conversation, they would be like, if you'd have been remembering schoolwork the way you remember these bad words, you know, so they used to use it against me and stuff. But, you know, bad word is always a thing. That's how you get to learn a new language. Or maybe, you know, get like a girl, you know, from that culture and stuff. That's the easiest way to.
Probably the most effective. If you stay with them for long enough, you know, it will be for sure. Definitely. Cool. And then kind of getting a little more abstract, but still on the topic of language. What is it like when you think? Like when you think, do you think in language, or do you think on a sort of sublingual level? How do you balance all these words, all these language contexts that you have? How does that work?
It's like 3D, man, 3D. Or maybe 5D. You know, I think in 5 dimensions. You know, because like if you tell me a word right now, I have to think first in my own native language.
So that's what you go to first.
And then translate it to Swahili, and then boom, translate it to, you know, English. And so it's always like there's a fast process in our heads, especially if you're multilingual. Anybody, I mean, you speak, you know, more than whatever, you'd understand this. If someone right now told you a question in like, you know, ask you like a Spanish whatever question and stuff, there are lots of things that goes on around your brain. You're trying to figure out what's going on and stuff, you know. So I'm always caught up in that situation. And sometimes some people might not understand this. Like here in America, it's like, hey, boom, someone asks a question, they expect you to give them an answer, you know. And so in my world, it doesn't work that way. I would take time, process it and stuff, you know, especially if it's like something. I mean, I'm doing my PhD right now, and like I'm not as quick, as far as like some Americans or people like English is their first language, they get it so fast, or maybe when they're reading, it's just so fast for them. But I take my time and process and stuff, and so yeah, there's just so many dimensions that or whatever. Each things that go on around my brain, it's all brain work, man. For me to be able to process, like, what's this person talking about? And so sometimes, you'll tell me like a word I've never heard before. I'm like, what is that? So I don't want you to tell me what that is. I want you to put it for me into context, or yeah. But if you put it for me into context, it's a little bit easier for me not only to understand but also to remember. Because if you define for me what that is, it's easier for me to forget, But if you put it into context and, give me some case scenarios or example, then boom, that's a little bit easier. I get to, remember it and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a mental game, man.
Yeah.
I would say, even in dates, man. And so, yeah, that also one thing that helps me is that when I go out, I'm always talking a little bit too much, So I take control and, control the narrative and the debate, because if I left it up to them, they're going to, thinking like possibly he's not smart enough or something. I asked him a question and he looked away or something, but it's just in my way of trying to process and stuff. And, as again, looking away in my culture doesn't mean that we are lying, or doesn't mean that we are less confident or anything like that, the way it is here in America, Looking away, especially if you look at someone straight in the eye in my culture, especially if they're elderly, they are viewed as, you're rude, Your parents will always be, look away, who are you looking at? Stop looking at me and stuff like that. And so we grow up in that fear. And so when you come to a culture like this, where looking someone straight in the eye means that you're not lying, you're confident enough and stuff. So you tend to struggle a little bit. And so when they ask me questions and they expect me to give them an answer instantly, and they look away or look up and I'm trying to figure out stuff and things like that, they're just like, oh man, I'll never go back to any date with this guy, or something like that. But, it involves a lot. You speak more than two, so you totally understand. Like if they ask you a question in Portuguese, man.
It's
that's how it is, man.
It is one of my experiences that I have pretty much every time I'm traveling.
Yeah.
In English, I'm pretty good. I like to read, so I've got a vocabulary, and and I feel like I can generally represent myself pretty well in English. But when in Spanish, every single time I'm in Costa Rica or Guatemala or something like that, I always have this experience where I feel like socially dumb. It's like I'm just like I go from being pretty sharp in English, what I'm used to, and then I'm just like I can't make jokes. There's like I can always say the right things, but I don't have the right cadence. It's I have to think. I can't just.
That's story of my life, man. Sometimes I'm like, I crack jokes with my students. They're nice people. I really love them and stuff. And they don't laugh, And I'm like, wait a minute. I stole this joke from an American. And the Americans still go, told the same joke yesterday. You guys laugh. How come you're not laughing today? But it's because of how I say it. My accent possibly doesn't bring it out as much. And so even if you know the language, there's some other things that you need to also know and add on to them. The way you say it matters a lot. Who you say it to, And a lot of other things, like, I can teach you Swahili today, but if you went to Kenya and started speaking, people will be like, of course, there will be amazing stuff. But then again, you don't bring it the way that I would do if I was the one saying it, And so, you've got all these factors going on, but it's beautiful. Language is beautiful. That's what brings the world together, and stuff,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm always fascinated by the language, and one more thing on language is in what ways do you think the language has shaped the culture here in America with English, and I think that might be an interesting question to dive into, because as you're joking about, a lot of Americans only know English, so that there's not really a frame of reference. But then also in Africa, in what ways does the language sort of shape the way people think, the way people act? You've brought up a couple things, how like kids can be disciplined by anyone in the tribe.
Yeah.
So these are some sort of cultural differences. I'm wondering if there's a connection between cultural differences like that and the language, and if you think there's a causation there, or maybe I'm just diving down a.
No, you're totally in order. You know, there's Of course, if you just know one thing, and not to say that everybody who knows one thing is boring, but it's boring to just, follow one path in life, you know. You also that's why I meet a lot of Americans, they're always traveling, my goodness, I meet a lot of Americans, they're like, I've been to such a country, I had a good time in Kenya, I have, and stuff like, they're always traveling from Oregon, going to Nevada, you've traveled like I don't know how many states, because you're always trying to seek something different from what you're used to, and so if you are used to, if you know a lot of stuff, like Israel, folks back in Israel, they're brilliant folks because they lived in different parts of the world. And, once they settle in Israel, they have like all these different ways of doing things. And so it makes you smarter, first of all, I would say, especially growing up in, and I'm not saying that, Americans are not smart, don't get me wrong in any way. I mean, even here in America, we've got Italian Americans, Irish Americans. You're of Irish descent. You're just telling me that, Indian descent, Native American descent. You've got Kenyan descent, folks, who have Kenyan descent. Talking of Obama, whose dad came from my tribe, Barack Obama Sr. came from my tribe. So my Luo name is Otieno. So how you also identify a Luo, sorry I diverge a little bit, but it's because the letter O, that's significant. You're going to meet Odhiambo, Opio, Otieno, Obama. Boom, that's where it comes from. So Obama's dad came from my county, and he's also a Luo. And so Obama, has visited, his ancestral home before and has visited Kenya too and stuff. But coming back to the topic for sure, I personally love traveling. And not just like internationally or anything. I just around my own country, because it's like different nations, it's like Luo and Luya, totally different nations. But when we were colonized by the British, they were like, okay, all these 44 different nations are going to form one country called Kenya. And that's the issue with Africa. People always worrying about, fighting and stuff sometimes, because they were forced to sort of cohabit in one nation. And if a lot of interests of some of these guys are not met, then, there has to be some sort of, fussing and fighting or strifes and issues, and because we were sort of forced, okay, this is gonna call Kenya, this territory is gonna call Tanzania, but we were one people, same roots, one nation before, the colonialists came and stuff like that. But my point is, if me as a Luo, I went to a Luya or Kikuyu or Meru, and that's just Kenya alone, basically I would come out well-equipped, more knowledgeable about doing things and stuff like that. If I went to Ethiopia, which is a country of 100 and possibly more than 100 million, and they've got more than 100 different tribes, you'd get to learn a lot, man, If I came here to the United States, you get to see, like I'm telling you, like, if you went to China, for instance, or Asia, I've heard, if like the appointment is at 8 o'clock, you're supposed to be there by 7:30, Here in America, 8 means 8, Back in Africa, 8 is like 9, man. No, maybe 10, And so it makes you a little bit more knowledgeable and totally understanding of other people, where other people are coming from. Because you're not who you are. You must be defined by the environment where you came from. So it's up to you. It's up to you to choose whether you stick to those roots or you make yourself even much better and stuff like that. So, nothing against people only have one way of doing things, but I would encourage them, honestly, to basically, if you only know English, and I've met a lot of Americans who are always like, oh man, I wish I spoke more than one language, or some of them are always traveling to Mexico, or, going to other different nations to learn. And, there are lots of, foreigners here in the United States who basically teach language and stuff. And so I would say the situation is kind of, improving and stuff. But if you're listening to this podcast today and, you stick to your own ways, I would tell you, go out there and explore, go here and conquer, conquer in a good way, not like in a negative way and stuff, but just go in and learn the language and boom, you're going to see the difference for sure. You get to meet if I don't know English, then I won't have been talking to you on this podcast today, or have been understanding each other. So I won't even have known you,
Yeah.
Who knows, maybe. But yeah, so go and just explore. I love to explore, honestly. Yeah. Including even the language of animals. That's one thing that now I'm so much into. I mean, I pretty much know more than I do because you've been hanging out with bears, right? But I would like to know, the animal language too.
Are you talking about verbal language or just like the way they communicate, like through expressions? Or
well, verbal we may never know,
Yeah.
I don't know, but non-verbal is also important because animals are brilliant,
Yeah.
I mean, I've mingled with your dogs, right here. And I could, like I was telling you, we just went out hiking today, and your dog Raz, basically a 5-year-old, what's the breed?
Australian cattle dog, blue heeler.
Yeah. And so every time that I saw people coming, and in my culture, as someone who's younger, you must stay on the other side of the road and let the older people pass, I even sometimes I do it for the younger folks because I know they don't know, but I just let them pass out of courtesy, And so I was doing that, you notice I was a bit slow, And so I was doing that to let them pass because that's culture where I come from, And so your dog also realized that. And, I didn't tell your dog anything, but, I kept on pushing her on the side. And there was a time when someone was coming and your dog just went on the side. And so how beautiful is that, if a dog can do it, what about you?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm of the belief that animals think more similarly to humans than people give them credit for. I think people in general think animals are just having sort of barely existent thoughts. But I think in general, I don't think there's language. They're definitely not thinking in English, but I think they're able to understand emotion and really convey meaning to each other just through their body language and their facial expressions.
Absolutely. Yeah, language is a beautiful thing. I would tell you that for sure. And, I have listened to a lot of podcasts especially, and I'm always looking at, I can't understand French podcasts, Spanish podcasts, German podcasts, Portuguese podcasts and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm missing a lot, since I only know English, because that was like the language of instruction, mostly, in primary school, high school, and, university, and still that's the official language of business and stuff. And so I would say that the way I'm thinking is actually one-sided because it's like English from an English person point of view. But how does a French person think? How does the voice intonation and how does a German think? How does a Portuguese think? How does a Spanish person think? And so I'm always trying to. You can't know everything for sure, but it's just good to know a little bit of everything somehow. So I'm totally fascinated with languages, and this is also coming off from a rich background in the sense of like language and culture, where you grow up, you just can't stick to one language at all. You gotta learn other people's language and ways of doing things because we were forced to sort of stay in one country, and so you can't survive if, it's just like here, you can't eat one meal because you're Irish, you're just gonna eat like Irish dishes, right? You gotta try out Italian pizza, pasta, and, try out tortilla, burrito and stuff like that. So, yeah, I see it. Even if you only stick with your language, you're going to try out other kind of things too. So, which is a beautiful thing, I got to admit, honestly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm the same. I really love language. And I just think you'd probably know better than me. You speak a lot more languages, but as I've learned a second language, and
Yeah.
I've started learning a third in Portuguese. I've dabbled a little bit in French and a tiny bit in Russian as well. But what I find is that it's at first when I started learning language, everything just seems so different. It was like, oh, we do it that way, and in Spanish it's this way instead of, you know. But as I kind of go, it's more and more. I just notice the similarities, like the overlaps far outweigh the dissimilarities, and I've also noticed too when I'm traveling, like a smile, a thumbs up, that is universal, you know. And I really think like you can, that it's universal to, you know, I can go to Kenya and I can give someone a thumbs up, they'll know exactly what I mean. And I can also give my dog a smile and he'll know exactly what I mean too, you know. So I've found that a lot of communication is universal by sort of exploring the differences.
Because you know what, we are one people basically. We are one people, you know. We all have red blood, whatever, you know. We all have eyes. We all have whatever we do, and you know, we all go to the toilet, you know. Not to be, hopefully you're not having your lunch meal or anything while listening to this podcast and stuff, but you know, we are one people, and that's why we've got this unit. There could be someone deep in the forest in the Amazon. There could be someone back in Russia. There could be someone back in South Africa, you know. And when these three people meet, they might not be speaking the same language, but they're gonna pass a message to each other, you know, verbally or non-verbally, which just shows you, you know, we are one people and stuff. And don't make me tell you this story of, I've got an American friend of mine who, as I told you, I went to a university which was just mostly people from all over the world, basically, you know, that's where I did my undergrad. And so I've got this friend of mine, he used to be in the U.S. Marine, you know, he was in Iraq, Afghanistan, whatever. And then, you know, he went to Kenya after he finished off his mission and stuff. And
did he go to Kenya with the military, or was this a solo trip?
Yes, after, you know, coming out of the military, he just wanted to, you know, find himself and, you know, and so he went to Kenya and, you know, registered for some classes and fell in love with Kenya big time. He was shocked how he was received, you know, how people are just easygoing and people love you instantly, you know. And so he just loved it so much, and he spent there like 7 years, you know, went to undergrad together, but he was also dating this Kenyan friend of mine who's called Sisi. Cecilia basically, but Sisi. And so, you know, they got like married and stuff, and you know, but every time that he came from Kenya, he came to, you know, visit his parents here in the United States, basically, you know, people would always ask him, where are you from? You know, he's like, I'm American. What do you mean? You know, but that's because, you know, his accent is changing, you know, because as you learn the local other languages and stuff, your other accent is affected. Or, you know, your other language is basically affected somehow. Yeah. Because I have spent a lot of time without speaking Swahili, and I'll tell you, I struggle when I'm speaking on phone, or because here in English is, you know, here in the States it's English. I speak English like the whole time and stuff. And so when I call my younger sister folks back home, it's like, oh man, I'm trying to speak Swahili. They're like, oh man, you're now becoming Americanized, huh? You know, because I'm saying it a little bit differently and stuff. And so he was always being asked like, where are you from and stuff like that. I'm like, you know, I don't want to cuss, you know. If you, man, I'm American, you know. So that was always interesting. But, you know, that just goes on to tell you how beautiful language is, basically. And don't even be afraid to lose your language, your own language, because that will always come back. The more you speak a language, the more you learn. Some people are always like, oh, if I learn French, I'm going to lose English, you know. Lose it. So what, man, you know?
To me, languages are like tools. And if you're a carpenter, you can build a house with different tools. You know, like there's a hammer, there's 20 different types of hammers, and they all have different advantages. But if you don't have one, you can pick up one of the other ones that'll probably work. You know, so it's almost like when you since I've experienced what you're talking about. I know you said you just went back to Africa. Was it last summer?
Yeah, last summer.
Last summer.
I went to Ghana. I learned a little bit of Ghanaian languages, and then I went to Kenya. And
that was your first time in 4 years, so I'm sure you kind of experienced what you're talking about, where the Swahili, I don't want to say lost it, but it wasn't wasn't as front of mind as usual.
Yeah, speaking, in fact, someone told me, well, you sound like you're trying to speak Swahili, and I'm like, I've been speaking Swahili like for the rest of my life. It's just like for the last 5 years I haven't been around and stuff. But I would say there has been a great improvement of the way I speak English compared to me losing Swahili. But I know if I went back home, within a month you're gonna be back and stuff. And
starts coming back. I've always felt that too. Even I'll go to Guatemala for a month, and after speaking English for my whole life, and I'll come back, and I'll still know it's probably not as extreme as what you're talking about. I'll still notice it, like it's it's like interference. I'm trying to recall Spanish words when I'm speaking English, and it just causes a little delay.
That's why I've got plenty of respect, especially for I've got family back in the East, And so what happens is that sometimes, not all the time, but when financial or whatever allows, these boys were born here in the States. And so during the summer, they're taken back to Africa, to learn and, mingle with the local children down there and stuff, And I've got a lot of respect for that because first, they're not only keeping up with their roots, and learning how, whatever. I mean, they're Americans for sure, but also, you come from somewhere. Like, I'm sure that you're always trying to find out Irish, how do they do their stuff? You celebrate Irish holidays, you hold this dear to you. And so these kids, with that, they get to learn the culture at the same time, the language. And that's what their parents are trying to go for. Because, hey, you're American for sure. You were born in America. But, hey, you came from somewhere, and never lose that. Because once you lose that, then you lose yourself. Once you lose your language, you lose yourself. Once you lose your accent, for instance, then you're just like any other American, and stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure that sometimes you watch Irish movies and you're like, oh, so this is how they pronounce that. Or maybe I should try saying this and stuff like that. And so I'm always looking for that, because nobody can claim that they come from Nevada. No one can claim they come from Maryland unless you're Native American. But even the Native Americans, they also moved here from somewhere else, and that's how the generations are. Even Africans, they moved to Africa from somewhere else. That's, we will never be contented by what we have. And that's why you'll find Americans in Kenya. You'll find Kenyans in America, just like me, people are moving everywhere. You will never stop immigration, which is another political thing. But if you take the politics off of it, socially, people have always been wanting to explore different things that they don't have, And that's what makes us better and, and stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, man. I think that kind of segues into something I want to talk about.
Yeah.
And I've noticed it throughout this conversation is you've brought up the history of really, really a lot of different parts of Africa, of the different tribes in Africa.
Yeah.
The Bantus, everything.
Bantus,
the Luos.
Nylons, Cushites, Semites,
And Africa has an extensive history, like relative to the United States. I mean, obviously there was Native Americans here for a long time, but the colonial history of the United States only goes back a couple hundred years.
Yeah.
We were taught that in school, but the history of Africa is much more complex. It's much more layered. There's a lot has gone on. I'm wondering, where did you learn everything? Like, how much of it was in school? How much of it was from your family? How much of it was through your own individual study? Like, how did you gain your understanding? Since it seems like you have a really strong understanding of, like, oh, this language came down the Nile. And so how did you kind of put it all together? What's that process like?
You get to learn it through any way possible. I'd like to say a lot of my learning is influenced by what was written. And sometimes it only favors the victors. The victors write the history and stuff. And so they'll never concede to like a defeat or, concede like anything bad happened to them or anything like that. And so a lot of the way I might tell you these things, but it's because of a lot of influence or from what I read or something like that. But also they are like the Luo traditions that are passed down to us from one generation to another, you know. Like
so
I've
that
told
would be
you,
what you learned from your grandmother.
from your grandmother, and that's how, you know, African traditional languages are, or used to be. I used to be, actually, that's the term, because things have changed and stuff, because, you know, in the Western world, things are written down, you know. I'm like, you go out on a date and it's like, the first time I came here in the States, I went to a date and someone told me, oh, write me an email. I'm like, holy shit, what the hell? What's up with that? Write you an email? Or, you know, you go out on a date and you're like, hey, can I get your number or something? And someone tells you, oh, you can get my Twitter page. You're like, go to hell, you know? You know, so things are written, you know, sort of, but in African traditional language, basically, it's like passing down orally, and we lost a lot of history through that, you know, because if you, you know, in the generation that have passed, if like information was being passed down orally from one people to another, and basically there came like a drought or terrible disease or war, and, you know, ravaged, wiped these people out, then you lose all that history. And so we lost a lot of history that was being passed down orally, but still we have maintained some sort of ways in which our ancestors used to do miraculously or wherever, you know. And that also goes to the story of African Americans, going by what they've been through and stuff, you know. They came from Africa, but their ways and means and the music that they do, the way they do it, the drumming and instrumentals, even the way they speak, mostly influenced by Africa, you know. And even the way they cook, you know, it's Africa, because they're trying to stick. That's what their great-grandparents or ancestors taught them. And so it's being passed down from one generation to another. And same to even, you know, Western cultures. Yes, it's mostly written, but, you know, your granddad or your parent would tell you, oh, this is how the Irish show, this is how things used to be done and stuff like that. And so big time, that was like, you know, I learned a lot of things from my grandparents, you know, my parents. There's a way things are done, you know, in our culture. It's up to you to rebel. Or it's up to you to, you know, keep them and stuff, you know. And so there are other bad things in my culture, just like in any other culture, that I deem as bad, you know. This should stop, you know. But there also are the good things that, you know, I feel personally. But there also someone who likes, oh, you think that's bad? This is cool to me, you know. And so they keep on doing whatever they're doing. And so you'll always find all these segments of society, but oral tradition, big time. And then I would say there's just a spirit somewhere in the air, no matter, even if you're left alone, you're the only Luo left alone in this world. You're going to do things, you know, the spirit of the Luo way of life will just find you. And so I just think there's also, miraculously, people still stick to their roots. And they may not even have like information of like, you know, like how the ancestors used to do it and stuff like that. But I would concede and say a lot of things that I say, especially Nihilas, Kushites, and all these things, a lot of things that, you know, we've been told by those who wrote those books and stuff, but also a lot of research that has gone on to these places. Like, you know, the cradle of mankind, where man came from, is East Africa, you know, so there's lots of research which are also helping us to decipher, break down all these things and, you know, bring everything into context. But there are also a lot of things that are unexplained, like, you know, religious books, for instance, and other controversial sites where people are always like, you left out the history of Africans, or you left out the history of this and this people, and, you know, and so there's always a lot of contestations and stuff. But until we as Africans write our own books, or until we, you know, try to explain possibly origins of how things are, or where we came from, or who we are, we might not have that information. But if we pump in more money and resources and research and try to bring this out, then yep, you know, we could have more information. But we lost a lot as far as our own culture is concerned.
Yeah. There's a book about American history called A People's History of the United States. Do you know that one?
No.
It's good. It basically it tells American history through the lens of the victims. So it's basically the opposite of the problem you're talking about, where the conquerors are the one who write the history. And there's another one which I haven't read yet. It's on my wish list, but it's called a people's history of the world. But I think that it's I think what you're getting at is a people's history of Africa as that sort of concept as being something that would be worth researching. But it's that book might be a good place to start. All right, so I want to shift gears a little bit. So we've been talking about your time in Africa. I want to kind of talk about what you've been studying in the United States, what you're working on, what you're passionate about. So you came here for school. Did you and you're doing journalism, broadcasting? Is that what you were doing as when you applied to come to school in the States?
Well, I was I was a successful sort of radio presenter and producer and stuff, and just fascinated by everything journalism, especially radio, and I hosted all kinds of shows. I've hosted Grammy Award-winning musicians, and I've done thousands of interviews, politicians, renowned, folks internationally and stuff, and so I was like, the media right now is at its state back then, sort of changing and taking a different dimension. All of a sudden, you've got like newspapers, laying off employees, because everything is online nowadays, nobody buys it. When was the last time you bought a newspaper?
It was, when one of my baseball teams won the World Series like 10 years ago. I got the newspaper the next day. But,
and before that?
4 years after the World Series. I was a Red Sox fan when I was a kid. I got 2 newspapers ever. They were both when they were 04 and 07.
Well, the newspaper someday is going to be in a museum somewhere in a window, and you're going to be showing your kids, we used to read that, and they're going to be like, what's up with that? You guys were so old school or something. But things are changing, and so I looked at the industry at that time. Even radio has been affected. People can produce, everybody's a radio presenter now, in the name of podcasting. Everybody thinks they can do it, and for sure, you've got, including you. You are pretty good at it. I'm actually, I'm so convinced you can definitely go even in the industry and do it, because you're a fantastic interviewer, and as long as you've got the confidence and you've got the passion and stuff, boom, that's it. You've got it for sure. And I looked at the industry, things were changing and stuff, and I said, I also want to change with it, And so I was like, okay, what can I do right now to start preparing for the future? And, Africa Digital is coming up big time. A lot of African influencers. There's a lot of, digital back there for folks who, just think we're just around wild animals and stuff back at you. But anyway, it's like big time technological innovations and advancements. It's not really talked about, but if you go to Africa, you will be so shocked what those guys can do and stuff. In fact, never mess around with, especially Kenyans on Twitter, KOT, that's how they're called. Oh, they're so vicious and rough, man. They're renowned as, some of the baddest, Twitteratis or Twinderellas or Twitterellas or something, But back to the topic for sure, I looked at the industry and said, I want to keep up with this digital technological innovation. And so I applied for a couple of institutions, University of Maryland, University of Ohio, University of Nevada, Reno. And, boom, I got to, all of them actually gave me a scholarship.
There you go.
And I was like,
wanted man.
University of Ohio, I don't want to be in the cornfields, bro. It's pretty conservative over there, some places and stuff. And then Maryland, and I hope they're not listening to this, but I was like, I've got family back there. I don't want to be close to these guys. I like being alone, sort of a bad boy, You want to be far out and out alone, the black sheep and stuff, Because I think creatively I want to have freedom. And so Nevada came natural for me. First, it's close to California that I've been watching in all these movies, I was like, oh, yeah. And then Nevada, I'm going to be in Vegas or something. And then, there's just like a rebellious spirit about Nevada, which I really like, you can sort of do what you want, and stuff. So I was really captivated by that. And, of course, they also offered me a good deal. And that's how I did my Masters in Media Innovation, journalism, but concentrating in media innovation. And when I was done, I was like, Holy smokes, what's gonna happen now? Should I get back to the industry or something? Then I was just like, let me just do this doctorate thing and get done with it, did other applications, and boom, here I am today. So basically I'm doing a PhD in communication studies. I'm a doctoral candidate right now, which basically means that 1 year, I'm good to go as long as I finish my dissertation work, collect data, analyze it, and get to defend it. And boom, I'm gonna be doctor. I can't wait, for you to call me doctor someday.
Dr. Nesta.
If you don't do it, you're gonna have to pay me fine or something. But yeah, so that's basically as far as my academic whatever is concerned. But I just can't wait to get done with this stuff, honestly. Because for the rest of my life I've been in school, majority part, and so I just can't wait to get done with this stuff and get to have a good time, travel the world, and heal from this academia, and stuff like that. But yeah, I just want to have a good time, honestly. But education, I would like to say also, when I use the way I look at education, okay, get the concept, but don't believe like everything you're taught is also true. Go and find out on your own, That's why I travel so much. I like traveling and meeting different people and stuff, because what we read in the books are people says perspectives, people says viewpoints. They were totally influenced the different place, the different time, by different people. And so what they wrote doesn't necessarily apply to me, but I could use the concept that they used to do that to help me test that wherever in a different place. And so to me, I don't believe everything I read in academia as the holy gospel, I just take it with a pinch of salt sometimes and then try and find out for myself. And here's where I might differ with a lot of scholars, actually, because, some people are there, but they're like, well, this and that guy say this and that, they come approach it from sort of a positivist angle, like, this guy said this, so this must be the plain truth, But I'm coming from it, like, people come from different cultures, There was a different time, like, there is no internet in the Bible.
Yeah.
Is there internet in the Bible, And so you can't tell me that's the whole gospel, because, because we are living in a world where there is internet today. I'm, not to sound, I'm a Christian myself, and whatever. But I'm just saying, I don't take everything with a pinch of, so you have to question. And the powers that be also wants you to question everything, because that's how you make a society better. I mean, just yesterday I was reading, student loans here in America. Biden chucked out around 10 G's for every student or something, who's being paid $75,000 and below or something per year. And so how did he arrive at that? Because, someone had to push him. People had to question, hey, this is not working for us. And so you make the world a better place by questioning. That's how I approach education and my travels, for sure. Yeah.
What questions do you have? What are you currently questioning?
Yeah, currently questioning.
Yeah,
I'm questioning everything, man.
Everything.
I'm even questioning your existence. No, really, but I question a lot of things. I question everything, honestly, But the real thing that, that's a great question, actually. I'm always questioning. I'm always thinking we are being controlled. And the powers that control us might not even be on this, especially the UFOs and everything that has been going on and stuff, that fascinates me so much, I'm like, what if you attack the next second? What if your immediate neighbor or your roommate could be, an alien or something, and stuff. And so I'm always questioning, what if my own sister could be an alien, because there are people in this world, and I believe some human beings are aliens, honestly. The way people behave, you're like, that is unhuman,
Yeah.
I believe there are people who are aliens, especially the serial killers and all those guys, I mean, it's a bit different,
Yeah.
But I believe aliens exist. As they're right here with us. They've taken the DNA and forms and shapes of humans and stuff. But, so I'm always questioning, what if, when people die, where do they go to? I mean, the holy books try and say, heaven or hell and stuff. But I'm like, what if, there's somewhere else that they're going to, you know, or what's happening, and so I'm always questioning my own existence. Honestly, I'm just like, I am an animal. Look at, you know, the dog. What's the difference? I was like, whatever. You'd say 2 legs or 4 legs and stuff, but if it stands out, that's just a human being, head and eyes and whatever, you know. So I'm always like, where have we been put in the position to basically come up with all these innovations? Not to say that lions don't have innovations, because we may never know. You know, they might have it in their own kingdom, but we just don't know. We assume that we are the most brilliant animals on this planet and stuff, and maybe we are not, you know.
I think we're just brilliant in the stuff that humans care about.
Yeah, humans care about. That's a good way to put it. We can write
textbooks, we can do math equations, and we consider those things to be smart things. And obviously, humans are the best at those things because we're obsessed. But
because your 5-year dog, you know, Raz, is spending time with Mataz, who's like 1 year or something, and so I'm sure Raz is passing information to Mataz.
Yeah, and I've observed it. And it's I don't know how it works. It's not oral, you know. But there's a lot that, like, a lot of stuff Mataz seems to have picked up from Raz that, like, he couldn't have observed. You know, it's almost like little. He just sort of gets things that, like, if I didn't have Raz and I only got Mataz and he didn't have the example of Raz, he wouldn't get these things.
And so that's homeschool. They're again, you know, oral tradition or whatever you want to call it and stuff. And so, I'm questioning everything, man. Even politics. Like, is it really real? I mean, these guys, you know, somehow the powers that be, even elections, are they really, you know? But we don't want to get there. Do we choose our own leaders and stuff, you know, worldwide, not just in the United States, you know? All these things are subject to manipulation. You know, I mean, the Democrats were complaining when Hillary, you know, lost the election. They were the ones shouting the loudest, you know, you know, the victory was stolen and stuff. You remember?
Yeah.
And then Trump the same way. And so when I look at all this, I look at the Democrats and look at the Republicans. Everybody's complaining. Then clearly there could be someone somewhere tampering with this thing, if at all there is. So I always question everything, man. Even relationships, you find yourself sometimes questioning, is this really the girl for me? Or, you know, is this really the right partner for me? And so, you know, and how you feel today is not the same way you're going to feel tomorrow. So, man, you ask me what I question. I question even the juice that I'm drinking right now.
I'm the same. I've got this tattoo that says it was all a dream. And for me, dreams have been a theme in my life. I've sort of chosen to believe that this is all a dream. And I like that because it forces me to question everything. You know, it's like I'm always just questioning if I'm even awake, you know. And I think it's kind of the same as what you're getting at with the aliens. Your neighbor could be an alien. It's not like, I don't really think you're a conspiracy theorist where you think like there's aliens and the government is out to get us, but it's and I'm not, I don't know if I really believe that we're in a dream right now, but by choosing to sort of think about these things, and it just forces you to ask questions and learn and get feedback. I love
conspiracy theories, man. I love it so much. You know why? It makes me sharper somehow. Because
it makes you think.
What is grad school or research? It's all conspiracies, man. You develop your own theory somehow. Or, you know, there's something called grounded theory where, you know, you start from the bottom and, you know, that could work. But there's some people who develop their own hypotheses, you know. And so they will start from the top and try and find out if that hypothesis is right or wrong or neutral, you know. While there's some people who start from the bottoms up approach in the sense of grounded theory. Like, they're going to go in it open-minded and sort of, but, you know, and sort of try and find out if whatever is true or right or false or whatever it is, you know. So it's all conspiratorial in its own right, even the formal education that I'm receiving, you know. And so I would never bash these guys because they're also trying to gain knowledge. They're also trying to get knowledge in a sort of whatever, because I have never met any conspiracy theorist who has never changed their mind somehow, unless you give him like a right answer or, you know, unless something happens. for that you can change their own mind. So I don't bash conspiracy theories myself. I'm not looking at it from a political sense, Here in the States, everything is viewed as political and stuff like that, But for me, I'm always leaving politics out of it. I'm like, okay, this guy says he's not going to take this COVID vaccine because of this and that. They have fears. And it's based off of, it's not that they're really conspiratorial. If you say, okay, that's conspiracy theory, it's because you're looking at it from like political view, But this guy might be coming off of a history of bad things having happened before, they just don't believe the government, anything the government produces and stuff. And so for you to get like the right whatever, it's easy to brandish them as that. But if you want to get the right answers, talk to these people and get to see where they're coming from and stuff. So what I see in America is a lack of understanding. They look at what their leaders mostly are saying. Oh, Biden say this and that. Oh, that's what we're going to follow. Or Trump said, oh, don't take that thing or don't do that stuff. And that's it. That's their gospel truth or something because it suits them politically. But from an independent point of view, I just think, I think a lot of PhD students or researchers are conspiratorial in their own right. I mean, my own dissertation, I don't know what the answers are right now, but I have a conspiracy about what's going to happen, I might be proven right or wrong. And so, I don't know, I diverged and digressed into whatever, but go ahead.
Yeah, man, I agree. I find conspiracy theorists interesting. And the one kind of thing that gives me pause about conspiracy theories is that I think a lot of it kind of falls into confirmation bias, where there's people who they kind of believe something for whatever reason, and then they look for evidence to support it, and they kind of ignore evidence that disputes it.
Yeah, for sure. There's a conference with educated professors which takes place in Texas, and these are professors who do not believe in global warming, and so they also prepare their own research and present it in this conference in Texas, like non-believers of global warming sort of conference, and you're like, holy smokes, what are these guys drinking or something? And so I see where you're coming from for sure. Yeah.
But what I do like about it, though, is, and you're kind of getting at this, there's a reason. There's always a reason if there's a conspiracy theory, especially if it's a big, kind of a conspiracy movement. And it kind of gets to what you're saying with Biden passing the bill. Like, the reason he passed the bill to cut student loans is because people were questioning. People brought it. And eventually that movement gained enough steam. Like, I remember when I was in college, there was some sort of organized effort on campus to do student loans. This was 6 years ago, whatever. So finally, like, those questions that I started seeing 6 years ago, kind of gain some momentum, or we're starting to see some action. And so the flat Earth thing, I don't know if I believe that the Earth is flat, but there's certainly a movement behind it. And if that movement were to gain enough steam, if the Earth will actually
why don't you believe that the Earth is flat, though? Why don't you believe that? Because you read it somewhere, or you've seen the Earth is round?
It's both. It's I've read that the Earth is round, and then when I look out at the ocean, I feel like I can see that. And when I'm on a plane, I feel like it just makes sense. Like, to me, everything I've learned, everything people have told me, it checks out with my observations.
Well, that's a good. But I can assure you that 1,000% of folks out there who believe that the Earth is flat,
it's the same.
Or they won't even give you the answers, or the Earth is round or something. They won't give you the answers that you just gave me. They'll tell you, oh, that's just what I know, you know. But I like that, you went and, you have examples to back up your claim, because as a scientist, you must back up your claim all the time. That's why we're in the business of, trying to collect data and trying to prove and disapprove theories for sure. But a lot of, especially folks who call themselves conspiratorial, whatever, they can't even give you, I would rather sit down with someone who believes in conspiracy and, it has a convincing whatever and gives me concrete, reasons as to why they don't believe in that, But that's just a topic for another day. We could ramble on and on and on and on. I sort of grew up in a culture where the government let us down,
How so?
I mean, corruption, sort of it's just they get away with crime and stuff like that, above the law, sort of whatever. And so I'm done with them, And so everything that, especially from my own context where I'm coming from, I don't believe anything they tell me. And so not like, I'm now into conspiratorial theories and stuff like that, but it's a bit harder to convince me about some things, give me concrete evidence, and yes, I will fall for it for sure if you manage to convince me. Yeah. I think that's also the kind of attitude that I came with in my PhD studies. That's how I approach it. As far as research is concerned, I'm always looking for concrete information to sort of try and convince you that this is what I've found. I'm trying to dispute what had been found before, and this is what I've found now, and stuff like that. It's about concrete evidence, and that's what a lot of conspiratorial theories out there don't have. They call themselves, I'm a conspiracy theorist and stuff, but they really don't have like concrete backup or claims, to back up their evidence and stuff. But that's more scientific that we know of.
Yeah. Gotcha. As you're talking here, it's I'm wondering to myself, like, what is your agenda in journalism? And I'm sensing your passion coming through with these thoughts about questioning and kind of understanding the genesis of information too, and I think that's coming through with sort of your historical account of Africa and how you kind of you started back with the tribes to describe the languages. But what's what do you have an agenda? And I think you definitely have one based on the way you're talking. I guess do you know what your agenda is?
Well, let's get to the heart of the people, man.
To what end? What end?
Yeah, I wanna.
Do you want to make them feel something?
I wanna use communication to help people, because that's why I'm in school, to help make society a better place,
Yeah.
That's an agenda, big time agenda, especially where I come from in Africa, a region which in terms of the media has portrayed Africa so negatively, it's considered the dark continent, and sometimes people are really amazed, like, oh, you're from Africa, how come, you can speak English, how, and stuff. So it's been portrayed in a negative light, and, a lot of whatever, plus historically. And so my agenda, as you ask, basically is to, show a different side of Africa. Show the better side of Africa.
To who?
To whoever is going to be, whoever is interested, whoever is, I won't say the rest of the world, because there are some people who are not even interested in Africa at all. There's some people who don't even know Africa exists, man. But for whoever is interested, because once you pick up an interest, like you ask me what's your agenda, it means that you've picked up an interest, And so to the people who have picked up an interest and are open-minded and, could also help me spread this good gospel. Like if you leave this place and go and tell some folks, man, I spoke to this Kenyan guy, he's kind of cool, he kind of knows what he's talking about. He doesn't know what he's talking about and stuff. Oh, people would be like, oh, Kenya, you said Kenya. So that, sticks. And so I want to be an ambassador for Africa, and sort of tell the good word and spread the good word of Africa as far as other regions are concerned. So get to the hearts of the people and get to influence them, not really change them, because you can never really change anybody. You can, but that takes a whole entire process altogether, but you can influence their thinking somehow. And that's as simple as it is, get to the hearts of the people and sort of make society a better place and stuff, But also, as far as science is concerned, also, I want my science to be a little bit provoking, I want my science to be controversial, and because I sort of like controversial figures, I like people who think outside the box, people think differently from where the majority goes. I don't like where the majority goes. Cause,
people who swim against the stream.
Yep, somehow. But also not just swimming against the stream in a negative way, I can give you an example, the war in Iraq, for instance. There was only one single senator who was like, hey, let's not take our troops to Iraq because there's weapons of mass destruction over there. You guys are claiming. And so, like, majority of our congressmen and senator or whatever, they voted for, like, oh, let's go hit these guys. They are weapons of mass destruction. What happened later? It was found that, there was no weapons of mass destruction in, like, Iraq. And so, 99 out of only one senator, and she was a lady from California, I'm forgetting her name, and time proved her right, So 99 senators vote like, oh, let's go destroy these guys in Iraq. There's only one senator who was like, hey, you gotta think twice about the decision you're making today, because in the future it's gonna ruin people's life, It's a lot of people died because of that war. Innocent civilians also, died in that war and stuff. And, just that one person, I'd like to be that person who's always the voice of reason in every room, irrespective of where the majority lies. Because the fallacy about democracy, the whatever about democracy is that majority have their way while minority have their say, And so what if the minority also had their say or had their way sometimes, And so I don't believe in this majority should have their way sort of thing, because in the long term, a lot of history has proved that, look at, Germany, for instance, and, the issue they have with Hitler and stuff. Majority of people voted in Hitler, And so finally what happened? The majority were wrong and stuff like that. So the majority can mislead too. And so I'm always like, hey, let's be cautious. You are the majority, but hey, think about tomorrow and stuff. So I always want to be that sole voice of reason in a room. So that's basically my agenda, man. Like, it might be, some people consider it, a little bit rebellious or radical in its own right. But I was just born with that, spirit, free spirit of like, I like people who do things a little bit differently and get away somehow, because a lot of laws, I believe, are sort of, I approach a lot of things from an anarchist point of view,
Yeah. Do you feel like that one senator against the other 99? Like, you're here in Eugene, you stick out a little bit, obviously. Do you feel like you're trying to represent the sort of the
minority,
the silent minority,
the 1%ers and stuff? No, really. Here in Eugene, I don't take up that whatever, because there are more people who are much more passionate about maybe taking that cause compared. But as far as communication is concerned, that's why I've set up my own NNN radio, because I want to do it in my own way. That's why I have collaborated with a lot of podcasters from the African diaspora, African Americans, Afro-Caribbean, African immigrants who live here in the United States, and I'm playing their shows on my internet radio station. In a small little way, I'm sort of getting to the hearts of the people and trying to influence them. And that's my agenda for my education, the same way that I look at it from, NNN radio point of view. And so I told you I want to influence people through the media. That's what I know of, I am not that person who's going to be in the street and, I could protest for sure, but I know there are people who can do that way better than I am, I don't mind joining them and stuff. But I like to protest using, communication tools like NNN radio, for instance. And boom, if you tune in, you get to listen to, get to understand how basically the African diaspora is in the things they go through when they explain their situations and stuff like that. So that's, that's just my way of doing things. And I might not be the loudest, a person out there and stuff, but in my own little way. I mean, like, look at my NNN radio. I've got more than 20,000 downloads, and people listen to this station. It's a serious business, and not really business because I don't make money off of it, and not really, I haven't really made anything out of it, but I do it for the passion because I understand the power of the media. And so in my own small little way, I'm trying to influence the people and make the world a better place and stuff. So that's basically my agenda.
Yeah. Love it, man.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good place to wrap it up.
Oh,
I don't want to. I don't.
You don't want to ruin it, man.
Yeah, I think that's a good moment. But before we sign off, you just brought up NNN Radio.
Yeah.
There's an app for that. If in the App Store, you just look up NNN space radio.
Yeah, NNN Radio, Nesta News Network by NNN Radio. You know, you could go there and download both on App Store, in Apple Store and Google Play Store. You know, just get it in 24 hours a day. Basically, it brings you the best of African diaspora news, music mixes, you know, podcasts. You know, I've got some of the award-winning podcasts, you know, that I feature on the show. I've got mixes from some of the best DJs in Africa, here in the United States, in the Caribbean region and stuff. I got to play them all right here. So it's a one-stop shop for like everything as far as diaspora is concerned. And also I've got like shows from Filipino Americans who live here. You know, I've got like Mexican Americans who live here. And not that I don't play stuff from other, you know, cultures. I want to have them here. But the thing is, I just don't have like connections to get there. Plus, of course, I'm also doing other things. I'm teaching students. I'm also, you know, taking classes, sometimes doing research. And so, but someday, you know, once I'm in that mental state to like do everything at once, and, you know, I'm going to feature in. But right now, the deal that I have with particular podcasters basically has Filipino Americans, Mexican Americans, African immigrants, African Americans and stuff. But, you know, we're still looking to basically get other communities, you know, because this is going to be like the United Nations, basically, radio station. You can call it UN Radio.
UNNN.
UNNN Radio if you want, yeah. But, yep. So it's still growing, as I told you, you know, lots of downloads and stuff. But it's one-stop shop, including you. You know, I've told you several times to record your music and, you know, bring me your music so that I can play it. You know, I don't know what you're waiting for, bro. I mean, you're so talented, but, you know, I don't know what's up. You don't like studios that much, huh?
You're putting me on the spot here. It'll come out. You'll be the first one to broadcast it for sure.
Yeah, I will appreciate that for sure, because, you know, we're always looking for content all the time. And yeah, that's basically it, man. And, you know, to all the folks listening out there, you know, you can make it each and every time you try. You know, if at first you don't succeed, try again. You know, time will always bring you your reward. And never ever give up. That should be the last word you ever think of. You know, I mean, look at me. I came from humble beginnings back in Africa. You know, I came here in the United States. And, you know, I mean, I keep on, you know, just winging it. And, you know, life goes on every time and stuff. And so, you know, you can do it, even if you're an American and stuff. Always just go out there and try and see what's out there, because you're going to be a much better a much better person, and, you know, see how people do things differently. And that just makes you, you know, richer as far as knowledge is concerned and stuff. But never, ever give up, irrespective of how rich you are, how knowledgeable you are and stuff like that. You know, never give up, because as I told you, rich people also cry somehow.
Still bleed red.
Yeah. And so, and death is the greatest equalizer too, you know. We're all gonna die. We're all gonna die, man. Yeah. Maybe turn into aliens, yeah.
There you go.
But yeah, one love. This is really nice, man. And, you know, let's do this again someday.
For sure.
Yeah, when you become a rich McAfee, you know. We're just watching I don't know how it's called, but that documentary on Netflix, man.
Yeah, the John McAfee.
Yeah, John McAfee. Yeah. It's a little bit radical, you know. Yeah. But anyway, man, this has been real, and thanks so much for, you know, interviewing me.
Yeah, thank you. This was a lot of interesting stuff we talked about. Is there anything else that do you want to share Instagram? Any other things that you want to put out there to the world?
Yeah, Prince Nesta Radio. That's, you know, my Instagram page. And
at Prince Nesta Radio is the handle. Yeah,
Prince Nesta, that's the handle. You know, you can hit me up anytime, and let's, you know, communicate. But I'd also like to get, you're listening to this, I'd also like to get your perspective as far as everything is concerned, or everything that I said is concerned. I don't have to agree with me, you know? Yeah, because that's the beauty about it. That's what I like. I like to provoke thinking. I like to be provoked too, you know? I like people who provoke me in terms of thinking and stuff. And I don't hang out with people who believe in what I say full time. I like people who differ with me because I get to learn, you know, and that's just who I am. So, hey, challenge me or agree with me. I would love that. Yeah, and let's hang out and have fun sometime. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, sweet, man. This was a lot of fun. Yeah, it's been a great time in Eugene. Great podcast to cap it off, but it's been a blast.
I couldn't believe how time flew past, man.
I know.
But yeah, good. They say, you know, time flies when good things happen.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Bye.
Over and out.